Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and time to get ready for yet another amazing session. And do not forget about our networking sessions as well while enjoying all the very informative sessions. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our next topic of discussion is the art and science of fundraising. And to talk about it more, I'd like to invite Mr. Samir Sood, who is the moderator. Warm welcome to you, sir. And he's also going to go ahead and introduce the panelists to us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Vani, for the introduction and welcome. I would welcome the panelists with me, TCM Sundaram, Samir Sood, and Anand Prasanna will be the three people who will be speaking to you about the art of fundraising. And what we will do is we'll tell a story about raising funds at the various stages, seed, A, B, and C plus. I'll start with an introduction for TCM. Please introduce yourself. Anand, you can go second and I will go third. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Meenakshi Sundaram, known as TCM. I'm a co-founder and MD at Charate Ventures. We are into our fourth fund, early stage tech VC from India.
Hi, I'm Anand Prasanna from Iron Pillar. We are a mid-stage tech fund in India. We have a couple of funds currently under management in India.
And I'm Samir Sood, one of the founders of Venture Highway. Me and a buddy of mine, ex-Googlers, Neeraj, based in the Valley, we started Venture Highway as a passion about 5 years ago. We do very early stage and tech, India outbound. And we are on our second fund. So the topic today is for entrepreneurs who are looking to raise capital at the various stages. I'm a seed person and I will talk a little bit about seed. TCM actually has seen more of the value chain than probably the other two of us. And Anand is the guy with the big bucks. So when you need really big checks, that's the guy you need to chase after. After my session, I'm going to chase after him for my next fundraise. I appreciate all of you attending the session. And I'm going to take a minute and present a very basic slide that we've put together, which will allow us to frame certain metrics for the 0 to 100 phase of building a startup. We at Venture Highway primarily do seed, and our check sizes tend to be sub 3 million. This, I would say, is one of the more risky parts of the value chain. And the reason I enjoy it is because I have always spent time in the 0 to 1 through my experiences of running a business and through acquisitions that I had been a part of when I worked in the Valley, which were at Google and Cisco Systems. We were always looking for very early stage product companies that could add a lot of value to various verticals, either from an expansion standpoint or from a standpoint of filling a market gap or coming up with new product offering. I will tell you, in my experience, some of the things that we look for in Venture Highway at the seed level. The first thing, it's all about the team. It's all about the founders, because earlier on we have very little to work on except the team that we're betting on. And also another aspect of what we look for when we look for teams is, have they worked together, or do they have any experience in the vertical that they're working in? The second part that we look at more closely is the market. How big is the current market and the potential future market? Or is there a market at all? Because it could be a new market that these people are exploring. The other thing that is very useful for a founder to have is clarity of thought. How clearly can they define their problem? Where does it come from? And what is the solution that they are offering? And why is that solution unique, and how will it win against others if there are other people in the space? And one of the other data points that we look for is, assuming you have a product already, we call it customer love. How are your customers interacting with the product? And this could be a B2B or a B2C product. I will let TCM add here because he does a bunch of seed too, and then go into 1 to 10, which is the A and A plus. TCM, over to you.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we also look at seed stage is it is reasonably a wide space in the early market opportunity. Because if it is very crowded, then it could become a challenge. That is something that we keep looking for. And so we are very comfortable with, let's say, being the first or second investor in that category. For obviously teams which meet the other criteria, like market and team and differentiation. And but we understand that the mortality rate in this is very different.
And TCM, you could possibly then comment on what takes you from seed to A and A plus.
Okay. Yeah. So this is good. So when we are in seed, and typically what we look for after seed, the next stage, and that for us from a time cycle perspective is possibly anywhere from 6 months to 18 months, depending on the business of companies. And what we look for is, as the company starts launching, is there a product market fit? And there are some businesses where we look for paying customers, not just early adopters, but also sometimes if it is A plus, somebody going into B, it's also that you can demonstrate rapid scaling. Where month-on-month growth rates, which are very steep. That actually proves that. And one of the other things is, even if it's not a paying customer, if it is a engagement related business, we look for user engagement in terms of the MAU and DAU and how they are going up regularly on a consistent basis. And another thing in such businesses we look for is also how viral is the product, or the sales engagement, or market adoption. So that shows in terms of product market fit without any doubt. Obviously, in businesses where you incur a cost to acquire a customer, we actually start focusing on also what is unit economics, right? That is something that's an important discipline to say that the company has moved from, let's say, the seed stage where it could be trying out stuff to identify product market fit or identify what is the right customer or even revenue model. But once you have revenue and also cost of acquiring a customer and servicing a customer, what's very important is unit economics. And that's possibly in a few instances where we actually stayed away from where we did not have conviction. I think the one instance where we possibly in the hyper local delivery and food delivery businesses, between 2014 and 15, there were 65 companies which got funded, institutionally funded in India. And we looked at 45 of the 65 and passed them, right? That is something that where we felt there is no unit economics. And there is no loyalty from the customer. Um, we did surveys with end users, and they used to carry at least 3 to 5 of these apps. And some of them used to even have a program saying that, look, I buy through this, I pay through another agent institution, so I get actually cash back on payment also. So you actually get paid for actually eating your dinner, right? That's something that actually was not, sitting well with us. We don't even know when you are at negative unit economics, when will you ever break even, right? And as we speak now, there are 5 years fast forward, there are only two guys standing. And that's completely driven by who has more money and has a willingness to continue to lose money on the table, right? So those type of things in some businesses do happen, but it's a huge capital gain, right? And if you do not see many investors lining up, then not having the next capital raise could actually push the company off the cliff, right? Which has happened in terms of multiple consolidation shutdowns in that business. So unit economics is important, while rapid scaling is also there.
I appreciate the background, TCM. I'm going to draw in Anand now. Anand is a later stage investor and is very good at metrics. He's going to talk a little bit about the metrics that he looks at when he comes into the companies, and also beyond the metrics, which all of us will comment on post that. So Anand, why don't you talk about the metrics
Sure.
you look at when you evaluate companies, and please do tell us when companies become interesting to you.
Got it. And Samir, I'll use the consumer tech hat first, right? We'll go to the enterprise part later, for sure.
Absolutely. So we'll split it up into consumer and enterprise, or B2C and B2B. Thank you, Anand.
So when we look at consumer tech companies, that itself is actually two different worlds for us. And so what is the hat I'm wearing? I'm wearing a Series B guy who would come in, but probably will double or triple down in Series C. So, or probably can go into Series C or Series D as a first round of capital infusion itself. And I've been doing this for last 7-8 years. And we have seen two kind of businesses. One is businesses which are actually trying to create a new market, most cases, and they are actually going to create something where a particular amount of scale is needed to build the unit economics. And then there is another set of consumer tech companies where you have made a cookie and you're just building a cookie cutter, right? That's, you have a model and you're just repeating that model across different cities or different blocks or even different other units, whatever is a unit in your company. So I have to kind of split these two worlds differently because these two worlds are looked at differently. So if you're looking at the first set of companies where you need to have a particular amount of scale before things start, the numbers start showing, and recently, like it is that kind of thing is the blitzscaling companies, and Chris Ye have made that famous, and Reid Hoffman has made that famous. Those we really kind of first 5 minutes when we see the founder, what we want to actually understand is what is your secret sauce, right? What is the real one thing that you're building? And we look for consistency of that from the time they kind of try to build it. So is this a plan which this person had been executing over a period of time? I'm not saying that your plan and day one have to be the same. It'll never be, but you learn and how you move. So a lot of that is actually quite important, how this platform was built and where you're taking it and how you get there and how much more time to get there. So we typically would like to see it getting somewhere in the next 3 years. Because if you come to her and say it is going to get somewhere in 10 years, you're better off probably going to someone like an Aspers, who would probably a listed company and they can hold for 10 years, not a VC fund, just being very honest. And on the other hand, when we look at companies which are cookie cutters, there is a plan which is already built out. One particular unit can be extracted and said, okay, here is the unit economics. that can be extrapolated. A lot of initial focus would be actually on, okay, then tell us about the unit economics. And then once you understand that unit economics work, and when you talk about that, you have gross margins, contribution margins, CM1, CM2, all the stuff. And then you go into the next layer of, okay, if unit economics work, then how large is this market? Which is the kind of earlier stage questions. You would still have to re-ask that question. So many times I see founders walking to us and saying, hey, my unit economics work. I'm still growing only like 40%. You should be investing in me. I said, like, no, unfortunately, we are still a VC, right? You're not going to a private equity fund. You still, it's a tough thing to be getting the backing of a VC, and you're still expected to grow 100% with good unit economics. It's a harder thing to do. I understand, and my heart feel for them. But on the same time, even at a mid stage or a growth stage, people are looking to get 7-10 times outcomes from there. These are not very, very late stage investors. These are not people who are investing in $200-300 million round. These are not pension funds, right? You're okay with a 2x outcome. So there you need to show the market size. And another important thing which we at that stage go into is, do you have a fully built out team? Or if you don't have a fully built out team, which could happen in a Series B, C stage still, are you self-aware that you clearly can show us that these are the gaps? Many times when people walk in, they don't even have a proper CFO, and they say that, look, I don't have any gaps in my company. We would really, that worries us. Right? That's like, does this person know, or this group of people know what it takes to go from 10 million revenue to a $200 million revenue, right? That entire thing is a very different journey. You need to have not only the right people, also the right kind of board members, the right advisors, and people like that around you. So all these things, how have you built the company to scale or your org to scale, also becomes extremely important on top of the unit economics and the size of the market. So that is where at a Series C stage in the consumer tech companies. Now, one other aspect about the blitz scaling companies, or like companies which are growing very fast. This may not be politically right, but I had to tell, because we are doing this for becoming useful for entrepreneurs who are listening to this. It's very important for you, if you are actually building with a plan to burn 500 millions or something of capital, it's fine to do that. But then you need to show that you have enough people around the table who can actually get you almost there, right? At a mid stage, if you're coming to raise a Series C or Series D, it is up to you to ensure that your A and B investors have deep pockets and who can continue to back you. If you are a very good unit economics company where bottom will not fall off, it's fine probably. But if you are a situation where the bottom could fall off, you better make sure that your early investors are deep pocketed. And without that, don't go into that battle. You may actually end up in a very tough place.
Thank you, Anand, for sharing that. We, as a seed fund, are highly dependent on people who follow on. And very earlier on, what I tell our founders are, hey, buddy, I'll give you your first check, but make sure you know who's writing not the next check, but the next 2 checks. It's really important, because we depend on the later stage of capital to make sure that there are resilient founders make it there.
Yeah.
TCM, you also would have a view on the later stage of B. What would you like to add here?
No, absolutely. In fact, one of the things that I have seen, and some of our companies have now gone to 6-7 rounds and have gone through to become unicorns, right from our entry in Series A. So one of the things is, it's the discipline that we see in terms of and unit economics. And in each stage, we look at what risk gets mitigated, right? So in the first stage, while you are looking at, a great market, great team, by the time Series A comes in, at least a product market fit has to be there, right? There is some semblance of the fact that, okay, You're solving a real problem. There is a customer willing to pay, or there's a huge engagement, which means you're having people who are coming after this. By the time you go to second stage, and at this stage, we also look for one thing, is in respect of the team, is that we don't look at a founding team which is one unidimensional. We actually look at that there is a complementarity in the founding team, right? The other thing that we look for is, I actually ask every entrepreneur for an org structure after my funding round and 3 years hence, right? I think one of the challenges that we have noticed where companies like Anand said, which are growing 100%, and actually growing 100% per annum possibly was good enough in early part of the last decade, but actually from middle of the decade, actually it's getting closer to 150-200% at least in the first 2 years time, right?
Yeah.
Literally you become like 3x and 9x in 2 years time. So companies from, though albeit on a small base, it's a 10x change, right? In 2 years. I want to understand whether the founders are aware of what it takes to build an organization like this. So just show me the org structure that you imagine what it will be. Is something that I actually ask for. And it also helps me understand in terms of where their heart lies, right? There are founders who are product guys. There are founders who are execution guys. And there are founders who are, and that's very interesting for me to understand in terms of the strengths of the organization, right? But one thing in the later stages is the discipline of actually demonstrating that profit exists. From unit economics, in maybe B and C possibly, you have to show path to profitability, right? But by the time you go to D or E, if you are not demonstrating that a substantial portion of the contribution margin drops down to bottom line, right? You are not able to demonstrate then the non-linearity of the business, right? That is something that people look at. So at that stage, growth could be 60%, but you have to show that substantial portion of that growth contributes to getting EBITDA break even or something like that, so that an investor who comes at that time, which is a few $100 million investor, can actually visualize saying that 3 to 5 years hence it will be a steady state company which can go IPO. Right? That's what we look for.
Thank you for sharing, TCM. I couldn't echo more in my investor partner buddies that it's a lot about the team. Seed, we look at team, we look at tech and non-tech founders. We also do a 6-monthly chart. It's not an initial org chart and 3 years out. We do one 6 monthly. And what that shows us is 6 months ahead, you need to hire for the position that you feel you're going to be or state you're going to be in 6 months. That's what it tells us, and it gives us the gaps. And we actually very openly share all of this information on a whiteboard with our founders. So the team is very, very important. The other thing we look at is, I would call it the ability to mature and coachability of a founder. Because a 0 to 1 company is very different from a 1 to 10 company, which is very different from a 10 to 100 plus company. And the founder or the founders must have the ability to learn like sponges and grow through the progression. Most of our successful founders have been there. We could very quickly, Anand, start with you and touch on the B2B aspect since we've discussed B2C.
Sure. So in the B2B aspect, again, there are two kind of businesses. One is typical, I would say, cloud software, because not much people are building any on-premise now. So cloud software businesses, and the other side you have, hardcore tech or like disruptive tech businesses. So in the cloud software space, when we look at it, say $4 to $10 million ARR is when these companies are, when they really hit our radar. A lot of metrics are actually there, and I'm not going to go into the details, but the key ones are your LTV CAC, your CAC payback period, which we consider quite high. What is your leaky bucket, or what is the churn rate inside those businesses? What is the gross margin of the business, etc. These are quite important for us, and obviously the fifth one is growth rate. Because even at that stage, you're ideally looking for companies which are at 100 to 200% growth rate. And there is a lot of that in the software world. So if somebody really had to kind of think about, you had to get money from the best people, and you have to think about what this metric should be, you should be looking at 70% gross margin with 150% growth, 3x LTV to CAC, 90%, if not 95% churn rate, retention rate. And you're also looking at a company which would have 6 to 9 months, ideally 6 months of payback. Now that is the absolute best company. So you would definitely have a couple of things which will be going away from there. So that's one part of it. Now the other part definitely comes down. In enterprise, it's extremely important, again, the team part, which you said. So I cannot de-emphasize that, because enterprise building out teams, it's like machine. I've seen enough companies in B2B software where they did not hire and plan the hiring for future, and the companies fell apart because of either the hiring in the sales was not right, or the hiring in customer support was not right, or the rollout was not right, and things mismatch. So it's like, it literally becomes, after a point of time, it's very important to have your chief customer success officer. You need to have a proper head of sales who have actually run sales at scale. You cannot hack through that, usually. There may be somebody out there, an outlier, who would have hacked through that, but don't depend on that. And if you put that plan in front of VCs, chances are that you may not get funded. Now, coming to obviously the normal aspects like market and opportunity, like in that situations, at that scale, you should be number 1 or number 2 in the market, ideally, or at least number 3. Because if you're not in the top 3, chances are that you will not get funded. You should figure out a way to be profitable and run. That's another important. Now, quickly going into what happens to companies which are really building 0 to 1 product. Like if you are into space exploration, right? How do you actually look at such kind of businesses? I would say 2 aspects to that. And this is more the art part rather than the science part here, almost. One is, it is a function of, do you have deep-pocketed investors who believe in your mission? Because a lot of what you get backed actually comes down to who else is around the table and how long they are ready to back this vision of the founder and the team. And the second is the ability, like how much of the progress in the science the founder can, because if you're raising a series C or D for a company which is building rocket ships, you should at least have your propulsion system, etc., fully built out and tested by that time, right? So there is enough. Or if you're building medical, some stuff, there is few phases you have already gone through. You have data, scientific data to prove and show, but there's no other way of looking at it. So what steps? I have 5 steps to go to moon. I have already done 2, and I have 3 more. And that's where, and then do you have enough ability to raise that capital to get to that 3 more, is what we assess.
Thank you, Anand, for sharing. So through the panel, you have seed A, B, and C. My request will be, please feel free to reach out to us through LinkedIn or other means if we can help with segments of your fundraise that we are a part of. I will now jump into some Q&A from the audience. Shanu Mishra has a question about seed funding. Is it important to have a proper working prototype to get seed funding? TCM, you want to give your opinion?
Not necessarily, though some in at least 50-60% of cases we do have a product or the MVP there. But there are instances where we have backed a completely paper plan. right? From a great team, where it is a complete white space. But those are exceptions, I would say, because our ticket size typically is $500,000 to 1 million at seed stage, or maybe 1.5 out of it.
Thank you for sharing. I concur with that. We have backed teams with a business plan. But what I will say is the more you show the venture capitalist at the seed round, the better it is actually for you. You have much more leverage is the word I would use. And in fact, if you bootstrap to a point where it becomes very attractive for you as a founder to be seen by multiple seed investors, that's probably an ideal situation to be in. Another question on seed is, what can startups expect to see from seed investors? I.e., I guess, what are they looking for? And some of this has already been touched on. I'll kind of tell you that, look, we're looking for the founder, we're looking for the market, what is the addressable market, but also what can be the future of the market. And that one piece of key insight that differentiates you from the rest of the people, or that one key insight that says that this is a new market that is unaddressed. Your product and its solution. And if you have any customer traction, what are the customers saying? TCM, you could comment here also.
Please come back to me on this. I missed this question.
Anand, I have one question for you. How do you look at disruptive solutions which are creating new markets? And you touched upon this a little bit in when you were talking about it. So space could be potentially one of them, but how do you look at it?
Yeah, so there are two ways in which I'll kind of calibrate that. So in consumer, if you're building a blitzscaling company for a completely new market, a lot of that is about how much of that journey in that market creation is actually gone. So we would kind of literally sit down with the founder and break it down. Okay, fine. You want to go run 100 till the 100th mile, and at which mile you are, how much of fuel you need, and people around the table, how much more fuel you can put in, so that you make an assessment of, okay, fine, this will go till 70, and do you have a shot at getting somebody else to refuel at 70, right? So that's a kind of subjective assessment, practically. But for that, what the founder need is very good clarity of thought on where you want to get to. Many times we kind of come across founders who are trying to blitzscale but don't have a very good clarity of thought on what is the final outcome, and that becomes a problem. In the hardcore tech side, in 0 to 1 situations, I just explained, it's with that rocket analogy. So if you want to send the rocket, you should at least have the propulsion system ready by that time.
Thank you for sharing. One last question. What forums do you recommend connecting with who are interested in seed stage entrepreneurs? I'll start with this. You know, there are a lot of there are very few VCs and many founders. It's a bit of an imbalance in supply and demand. Any entrepreneur who's looking to raise their first round of capital, try and get a warm connect. Try and find a friend who knows a venture capitalist so that they can put you in front of these people. And today, with the likes of LinkedIn, it's not that difficult. The reference actually in seed really makes a very big difference. So if you were to come to me from a very solid reference, I would absolutely at least meet you. That's one very good piece of knowledge that I want to share with all startups who are trying to reach any stage of investor, not just seed. TCM, you could comment, and then Anand.
Yeah, in addition to the qualified one, I typically see that they understand our. In some cases, they have at least gone through some of our portfolio. I remember actually one instance where an entrepreneur wrote to me saying that you invested in this AA company. That's why, I want you on my cap table, right? that catches your attention. You say that, okay, fine, somebody has done some research, right? Not just blindly sending to 100 investors, because just the load, just to share with you, our firm evaluates at least 3,000 deals a year, right? And we invest in possibly less than 20. So it's just going to be that much more difficult to get to. So you need to be able to make that part.
Thank you, TCM. Anand, any last thoughts on this?
Samir, I actually completely agree with what you and TCM were saying. Ultimately, for us, it's about the best route to come to us is through somebody who know us, and your chance of getting through becomes much, much more higher. We do reply to every email which comes to us from an entrepreneur very soon, like 48 hours is the firm rule. But chance of you getting a meeting improves a lot through a direct connect.
Thank you for sharing. One other thing is, as you go through your journey of fundraising, please make sure that not only are you picking the firm, but pick the partner who can add a lot of value to the firm, to your company as you build it. I really appreciate TCM and Anand taking their time. Thank you so much. Resilient entrepreneurs out there, we love you. Please reach out to us through a warm connect, and we'd be happy to meet with you.
Thank you, sirs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the very, very informative session here. Thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us today. Once again, thank you very, very much.